Ritika, please unmute.
Sorry. Namaste and good evening, everyone. I, Ritika Gupta, Assistant Director at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabha Weaponized Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my heartiest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Talk. Today we are here for a special talk on China's emergence as a tech power by Dr. G Venkat Raman. This talk is part of the series, The State of International Affairs #Diplomacy Dialogue, which is organized by Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies at IMPRI. I would now like to request our moderator for today, Dr. Simi Mehta, who is CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI, to introduce our eminent speaker and discussants further. Ma'am, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritika, and good evening to everyone. I hope all of you are keeping safe, you are well and in the best of your health, and so is true for your loved ones and everyone around you. So good evening once again, and welcome to the series on the state of international affairs, #Diplomacy Dialogue. Just to give you a brief background about the series that we have instituted is the fact that we live in a highly connected world, and the events and happenings in one country directly or indirectly impacts the other countries. So from bilateral relations to multilateral arrangements, from diplomacy to sanctions, from globalization to protectionism. And as today we will see emergence as a tech power by some countries, especially China, the role of small and developing states, reforms of global governance structures and processes and non-state actors, and also international policy development. These are the areas that really require a concerted understanding. And to facilitate this kind of a concerted understanding, we need to have more engagements with scholars and experts who specialize in this in these realms. So today we have gathered here to witness one of the most important and pressing topics for the world at large is China's emergence as a tech power. And this talk will be delivered by the expert none other than Dr. G Venkat Raman. And we also have as discussants to the program, as we have with us Mr. Kazim Rizvi. He is founding director of the Dialogue, a think tank. We have with us Mr. Amit Dubey. He is founder of India Future Foundation. He is a national cybersecurity expert. We have with us Professor Ritu Agarwal. She is Associate Professor in the Center for East Asian Studies, School of International Studies in Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. And also we have with us Ms. Ambika Viswanath. She is the co-founder and director of Kubernein initiative. So with this background, I would like to introduce to all of you briefly Dr. G Venkat Raman, and then I will be inviting him to speak. So Dr. G Venkat Raman is currently an associate professor in the area of humanities and social sciences at Indian Institute of Management, IIM Indore. He's a sinologist and is one of those rare academics who has completed his doctoral studies from the School of Government in China's oldest and premier university, Peking University in Beijing. He speaks fluent Mandarin, and he has also worked in Beijing as a professional for around 3 years. And he offers courses like doing business with China, geopolitical perspectives in business, and business ethics at the postgraduate level. And at the undergraduate level, he offers courses like international relations. He's also a business excellence assessor and has been part of the business excellence assessment team under the auspices of the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industries. Sir has been a visiting fellow in the BRICS Center, Fudan University, Shanghai, and a visiting faculty in IC and Nancy in France. And his research areas include China's interface with global governance and business ethics, pedagogy. He has published numerous academic papers in reputed peer-reviewed journals like Journal of Business Ethics, China Report, and the International Journal of Emerging Markets. So thank you, sir, for your presence and for agreeing to be a part of this talk series. I would now invite you to begin with your presentation. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Simi, for that very kind introduction. Very good afternoon to all of you, all the members of the audience. I would thank IMPRI for having invited me for this special series of talks. So without further ado, I would like to start with the topic. So this is how I plan to do this talk. As you all are aware now, we're talking about China's emergence as a tech superpower. So because this lecture is part of the series, which is dwelling on international relations and other aspects of international politics, I'd like to focus on the international ramifications rather than going into the nitty-gritties of China's motivations and how it evolved as a tech superpower, etc. So this is the structure of my talk. What I would do is I would, first, talk about, is China a tech superpower at all? Let us try to very briefly ask that question. Then I would like to go on to, talk about some of the various initiatives that the state has taken in China in the last 20 years, especially in the last decade. And ever since Xi Jinping's elevation, what are some of the measures that have been undertaken to promote China's emergence as a tech superpower? Then I would like to talk a bit on the digital Silk Road, the third part of the BRI. Before the corona, this was not much spoken about, but ever since the COVID epidemic has broken out, this aspect of BRI has gained a lot of prominence and has been promoted by the state. And then I go on to basically talk about 4 to 5 ways in which China's emergence as tech superpower is going to impact the world, and then I would conclude. Right. So let me start with this picture. This picture is basically of the Chang'e satellite, which landed a spacecraft, actually, sorry, a Chang'e spacecraft, Chang'e 4 spacecraft, which landed in the moon. And why it is so special? Well, it is so special because this landing took place on the far side of the moon, and to relay images from the place where it landed, you need to have a pre-positioned satellite to relay images back from it. And this is the place where no one, ever dared to actually land. And with this, event, China projected itself as someone who has arrived in the world of big tech. So, it portrays the geopolitical sway, the geopolitical confidence, the spillover effects in terms of military might, and the soft power, image of China as a science and tech, power. That is what was the idea, and they entered the world stage with a bang. So now the question is, so with this, I thought I'll just show this image just to take note of the fact that many in India are not aware of what kind of tech supremacy our neighbor has already achieved. So I thought, I'll start with this. Now, then, obviously the question is, so what? Is China a tech superpower? Is it, an outlier thing? So let us try to look very briefly in terms of some of the, the positive and negative aspects, the yes and no aspects of this debate. Many people feel that, yes, China has arrived. And people like Kai-Fu Lee and say that this is not the age of discovery. This is the age of implementation. So therefore, when you're talking of age of implementation, China seems to be reaping the benefits of a latecomer's advantage. And, artificial intelligence challenge today is the most complex one that the US is facing. The Chinese have the biggest cluster of artificial intelligence scientists today with more than 800 million internet users. Chinese tech companies, they occupy a prominent position in the global supply chains, and one has to take this with a pinch of salt. Some of you might say that, come on, with China more and more inward looking of late, they will not be in a position to improve further because they're likely to fall into a trap of cutting themselves off from the wider world, where the world is likely to witness cutting edge. So they will be shielded from competition. So therefore, this prominent position is likely to be short term. This is a caveat. But however, what happens later is different. But as of today, Chinese tech companies definitely occupy a prominent position in global supply chains. In a very short period, brief period, the Chinese have been able to indigenize high-speed trains, nuclear plants. So now let's talk about, some of the negative aspects. It is being said by some people that, oh, come on, this Chinese dependence on imports of semiconductors is even today pretty huge. Top 15 semiconductor firms in the world, they don't have a single Chinese name. 68% of the MCAP of market capitalization of world's top 70 digital platforms are US companies, while China has only 22%. Third is, people say that skeptics say that China's 5G technology edge is after all short-lived. US and European Union tech players to develop software-motored 5G technology. Someone like Qualcomm is betting on this. So this hardware-powered 5G technology is something which is going to be an advantage, but it's a temporary advantage. Once, these Western tech firms are able to come up with a 5G technology motored by software, then they are going to emerge, much stronger. So these are some of the, debates. Obviously, given the limited time, one won't be able to do justice to this full question. So I thought I'll just take you through to some of the things. But given this, limitations, the point is, what is it then people are afraid of when we speak of China as a tech power? So there are 4 factors that put China in a pole position. Number 1, China today, basically, simply you look at the size and attractiveness of its domestic market, you will see that, it occupies a very, very indispensable, vital role. And it occupies a very prominent position in terms of the global supply chains. In fact, I and some others also have felt that, despite the COVID-related epidemic and, the origin of epidemic-related controversies, China has still got away with whatever it is at least to have done, simply because, the way it has dug its heels deep in the global supply chains. So this is something which is very, very critical. Number 2, the Chinese state's muscular, multifaceted industrial policy, huge, tremendous infusion of capital into favored Chinese firms and resultant outward foreign direct investments, especially in fields like telecom, has, catapulted China into the world of high tech. Third is, tech players in China are increasingly becoming competitive. They are no more like in early years. They are not someone who are just imitating, the Western models. They are no more, reactive. They are more proactive. So the tech players are increasingly competitive, not only on price, but on innovation front as well. In fact, 6 out of the 20 most valuable firms in China are tech firms. And 2017, Huawei applied for most number of patents at the European Patent Office. So last is China's creative and empowered regulated culture. I mean, many of us in India, try to make a lot out of, the authoritarian model that is there in China. But experts, observers, close observers of China, they all know that despite its authoritarian regime, there seems to be a certain kind of very, innovative, administrative flexibility that is there within China. And, again, this is a very, very common saying, but maybe some of you are, not so new to China. So therefore, it is said about China that Shang Yo Cheng Se, Xia Yo Tui Ce. It means that the top has, policy and the bottom has counter policy. So therefore, even if you look at, environment, even if you look at tech, if you look at tech and look at many other things, it's not necessary. The center basically lays down a policy guideline, and then, it depends on the provincial leadership and the sub-provincial leadership to take clues and come up with attractive policies. So anyway, this is a slight digression. So generous grants. So China has got a very creative and empowered regulatory culture. So generous grants to regulators. There are lively debates on the basis of which, selectively the domestic firms are favored, and extra burdens are imposed on foreign companies. So bottom line is social stability and state interest above everything else. So this is something which is a defining feature of China when it comes to any kind of governance. But in terms of digital governance, this has led to very interesting outcomes. So very quickly, what has the Chinese government done in the last few years? If you look at China's industrial policy to boost technology innovation, it has come up with the slogan when Li Keqiang spoke about mass innovation and mass entrepreneurship. Until that point of time, the Chinese as a society are, were still dominated by, single child, parents were saying that you should go and, work for some company, you should do this, you should do that, you should look for a very secure job, just like you do in India. But actually, when Li Keqiang said this, it led to a kind of frenzy, and then a huge mass of energy erupted, and suddenly China went zoomed into the world of innovation, and taking the clue from Li Keqiang's call. New innovation zones were formulated by different provinces, and the state itself basically sought to attract venture capitalist funds by infusing a lot of funds into some of the startups in terms of what they call guiding funds. So they subsidized tech entrepreneurs, and then the state council gave calls to create thousands of tech incubators and entrepreneurship zones. And implementation by local officials was also, a lot of, the local leadership took clues from the central guidelines, and, and what we have seen, is something which is unbelievable in such a short span of time. So I won't go through all the milestones, but some of the milestones, if you see in this particular slide, are pretty significant. Currently, 20% of global R&D on S&T is from China. 2018, China has produced more grads with science and engineering degrees than those produced in US. 2016, according to a McKinsey study, 90% of global consumption of chips is basically in the Chinese mainland. The Made in China 2025 plan, 75% of the chips, they say that, especially after the Trump administration experience, they now have resolved that 70% of they're going to become self-reliant. And now, apart from the Made in China 2025 plan, you all must be aware that now they have a 2035 plan by which they are saying that we are going to become, completely self-reliant as far as tech, dependence is concerned. This is very interesting. According to Rhodium Corporation research firm based in US, the Chinese companies had 27 bids for US semiconductor firms worth more than 37 billion US dollars. In the period 2013 to 2016, as compared to US dollars 214 million from 2000 to 2013. In fact, the government has basically said that we are going to, it has launched itself an ambitious plan whereby saying that, we are going to become world's primary artificial intelligence innovation center by 2013. So, in the recent times, if you look at, ever since Xi Jinping has come, whether it is foreign policy or whether it is, internet security, the Chinese Communist Party has something called leadership small groups. These leadership small groups look into various, issue areas, if one can say so. And if you look at some of the most critical issue areas, Xi Jinping is the one who is chairing them. So Xi Jinping is chairing the leadership small group on internet security and informatization. And he has very clearly, indicated that now onwards, tech development, tech progress, all those things are going to, be based on what, the party says strategy of quote unquote party building. The firms have been asked to launch party committees which can opine on whether corporate decisions is in line with government policy. And Cyberspace Administration of China has been mandated to control online bolstering of cyber security and developing digital economy. China has very interestingly, has taken this stand whereby it is talking of cyber sovereignty. So in terms of cyber sovereignty, what it's saying is that individual countries should be left independent when it comes to choosing their own path of weakening cyber development model of regulation and participating in international cyberspace governance. So they are saying that United Nations should play a more critical role and look at cyber sovereignty, national sovereignty from the perspective of cyber sovereignty. So in the age of fervent nationalism today, cyber security, sovereignty, all these things are undergoing significant meaning as a result of the discourse that is emanating from China. Last but not the least, all these developments have led to a major, kind of a rethinking in the West and US and other Western countries, that all these days, people were celebrating the Silicon model of, development and Silicon model of innovation. But now people are saying that, is this a world where if we are to compete with China, it has to be top bottom and not bottom up? So this is, something which is a part of the whole debate. So digital, Silk Road, as I was saying, third pillar, it has been declared as a third pillar of the Belt and Road Initiative. The idea is to focus on digital payments and 5G technology. So the plans are there to invest to $180 billion in creating 5G infrastructure in the next few years. The idea is to give opportunity to popularize Chinese 5G standards and boost the competitiveness of Chinese players versus top US players in over-the-top services. When one says over-the-top services, smart city projects and urban development and environmental protection, energy security. So you have a host of things whereby you're talking of boosting the competitiveness of Chinese players versus the top US and other Western players in this domain. Increasing China's transnational undersea cable projects. So when the whole world was dealing with COVID, in Feb 2020, Huawei Marine Network has laid down 37,000 miles of undersea cables. So what is the threat here? The threat here is that, in this whole process, no Western firms and policymakers are involved. And this data traffic monitoring within China is going to significantly increase. And as it spreads the tentacles beyond China, especially with the BRI initiative, it's likely that China is going to increasingly be in a position to monitor developments beyond its borders. So, now I come back to, I come to the heart of my, talk, where I'm saying that, emergence of China as tech power, how has it impacted? So one is tech value chains. How has it impacted the technology value chains? Second, I'm going to look at how it has impacted the international tech regime, technology regime, and likely to do so as we go ahead. Then I'm going to look at, how this emergence of China as a tech power is impacting the geopolitics, and how it is being motivated by the Sino-US tech war. And then finally, I would go on to conclude. So let us try to look at, some of these aspects. Coming back to, tech value chains. One of the most important things that has emerged out of China's emergence as tech power is now, with, as I said, according to one McKinsey study, 90% of consumption of chips basically is in this part of the world. So therefore, there seems to be a significant shift. The center of chip making has shifted to Asia, and with this tech war that is we are already witnessing too. One is likely to see erection of new tech walls and reconfiguration of how these tech walls are going to work. On one hand, only 3-4 years back, Facebook and Amazon, they were going, the Chinese because of the large market there. But as soon as Trump, administration took the bull by the horn, one saw that suddenly there seems to be an anti-China, kind of a feeling sentiment, strong sentiment, and big tech players in US are ready to work with the state to pursue their own corporate objectives. The state also would like to jump onto this opportunity to see how these corporations can be made use of to further their foreign policy objectives. But interestingly, on the other side also, we are seeing the same thing. How, the Chinese big tech players are, are basically participating in this chorus of de-Americanization campaigns. So one is seeing, major talent wars. So if you look at, the way some of the Chinese players like Xiaomi and Oppo, Vivo, Huawei, the way they are going all out to basically snatch some of the best talent that, many of the chip making companies from Taiwan is not funny. And that has brought in, this Taiwan, China, US perspective in a very interesting way. In fact, Taiwan was for a very long time over-dependent on China, but as Corona broke out and US-China relations deteriorated, Taiwan very quickly realized that they also need to get over the over-dependence on China. And as a result, Taiwanese government has offered subsidies to Taiwan firms to relocate. And some of the Taiwanese companies have also been given subsidies and good opportunities to come and invest in US. TSMC has gone to US to invest. So this tech rivalry and spillover effects on R&D, if one looks at 2020 June figures, one fourth of global demand for chips is by China, according to a BCG report, that is Boston Consultancy Group. The domestic semiconductor industry accounts for 14% of demand fulfillment. So still, we have a long way to go. But the point is, the tech value chains is going to see a major rejig once, in the times to come. So if you look at, high silicon, the arm which makes chips for Huawei, they, even before this US, ban, they were prepared. And if you look at some of their advanced models of phones that they have launched, there has the components that have been used, the made in US components that have been used has come down very, very significantly, which means that, they already planned in advance and they have the necessary prowess to overcome, the hurdles which the American administration has imposed on them. So Huawei is only one player, so with the concentration on Huawei, one can see that because it's a very big player now, it's significantly going to affect the global demand and supply, and may even, but this will lead to providing opportunities to other players, like Oppo, Xiaomi, to expand globally. So in other words, global tech value chains will see major realignment. The Asian supply chains have been shaken. So as Chinese electronic companies seek to insulate themselves from actual and potential US pressures, and non-China players, big tech players like Cisco and other Ericsson, so all these players are going to find it very difficult to operate, in China, and along with that simultaneously in the other markets as well. So they have to pick and choose. And that is something which is going to increase the cost of business. Now, this point is extremely critical. When I'm talking of emergence of China as a tech power, we're talking of international tech regime. You see, Siemens, Werner von Siemens, in 19th century, he said, he was quoted saying, and I quote him, "One who owns the standards owns the market." And so true. You see, he spoke about it in 19th century in terms of the geopolitics of industrial protocols that time. But today, we are witnessing how China is basically trying to create and rewrite the rules of the governance, and when it comes to international tech regime. So the standard setting in the tech domain is no more prerogative of the West. So the battle over 5G and the new telecom regimes, China is all set to export 5G and advanced AI to more than 100 countries. So as part of BRI, Beijing is likely to influence, have great influence in United Nations and other standard setting bodies like the International Telecom Union to enhance interests of its big tech players. So therefore, 2023, it is going to be a Chinese who's going to head the International Telecom Union. So China was, in around 2007, among 164 countries, it was just another small player. in a span of less than 15 years, not even 15 years, they are in a position to see that one of theirs is chairing or, leading the ITU. That is quite a significant, achievement. So how, what are the quid? So there will be some spaces where, the West is going to compete with China. There are going to be some spaces where it will, cooperate with China. So what is the quid pro quo when it comes to, these kind of exchanges? Where do they contend with? Where do they cooperate with? So Chinese are in a very solid position, basically, to influence, the rules of the game. And that is where, we need to take note. Now, coming back to, this is again something which is very important. When we talk about big tech, we are talking about governance. When I'm talking of governance, we are talking about financial governance, financial regulations. We're talking about, the digital currency. We're talking about governance in common parlance, the ethics of, artificial intelligence, the ethics of IoT, ethics of, big data and all those things. So let me try to, highlight some of them. So if you look at OneConnect, this is one of the, companies which is an arm of Ping An. It's the major, one of the topmost brands in China. It's an insurance brand. So OneConnect is basically, provides cloud services, and with, in a very short span of time, with its expertise in rewelding pipelines, is able to channel money in developing world. It's kind of waging a proxy battle against US giants, and it is being said that already, the Chinese companies, along with, Alibaba and Tencent, they already have a parallel structure to the existing ones. So in 2015, China launched, system CIPS. It's an interbank messaging system to basically ease international payments in yuan. Till May 2020, 950 institutions use it. This is till now, it has not been used, but they have a system in place. So this is a messaging system to complement SWIFT, which may supersede it. Alibaba and Tencent have already built, as I said, a parallel banking system. Then we all know that in today's China, you can't imagine today's China without QR codes. So these are the super apps that are going global. Alipay is being today accepted in 56 countries. Alipay has also bought minority stakes in wallets in 9 Asian jurisdictions, allowing it to influence the industry without even paying for local influence. Local license. So, so basically, now I would quickly move on to, let me try to look at impact on governance. So I'll talk about impact on governance after I cover, the geopolitics part of the Sino-Tech and the Sino-US tech war. Now, big tech, right from big tech has, once again, as I was mentioning earlier, big tech has suddenly seen that, it is basically in no position to choose or not to choose the state. It needs to have the state support if, the Western firms, that is, if they have to compete with the Chinese players. So therefore, big tech has allies in foreign policy in the post-COVID era. So we are witnessing a complete realignment of state business relations. Western techs are being inspired with the Chinese model, where the state has played a very critical role. The Chinese have very shrewdly used their, status of being a socialist market economy, and under the auspices of being a socialist market economy, they very shrewdly used the intellectual property rights and how do we interpret them. So they have very, smartly come up with various initiatives and policies whereby they can prevent foreign dominance and technologies in areas of key significance. They have gone beyond traditional protectionist instruments in the form of local content requirements. They have subsidized loans for local firms, making it extremely difficult for US and other Western players to compete on even terms. So China's state-directed, IP in the form industrial policy in the form of Made in China 2025 has harmed US interests mainly in the high-tech sector. Now, if you look at, the China's growing might as far as IoT, AI, robotics, all this is concerned, and the way it has, come, some of the players like, the bike, we all know how TikTok was banned, in US, and later it was banned in India. So the whole concern was about how, many of these entities are in the name of video games and video, related software, how they are able to capture big data as core of intelligence. So the idea was that, they are, because artificial intelligence feeds on huge, quantities of data. So the more the data, the merrier. So therefore, it was felt that this kind of a prowess that China was developing, it might lead to corporate espionage. It might even also lead to how espionage of the intelligence agencies. So this has led to basically banning of, the TikTok and, other and other kinds of policies that have been taken under the Trump administration. So big data as the core of intelligence. And this again, the way the world is moving, we are looking at, a certain kind of balkanization of the internet. So the issues that are going to erupt are, how personal data and privacy is going to be encased upon to build a more robust AI systems in China by Chinese tech players. And how some of the players like Tencent. So for example, Tencent, market capitalization of $650 billion. So 1/3 of its revenue comes from games. So therefore, through these games also, there is a treasure trove of data, which again is relayed back. And many countries in the West and in India also, we feel that this is something which compromises our own national interests. So contesting for digital real estate between the two spheres of influence, how data and artificial intelligence are going to influence each other. So these are some of the things. So Internet of Technology, Internet of Things, whoever runs the global IoT today has a strategic geopolitical advantage. When it comes to the ethics part of it, AI's predictive powers, ethnic profiling, something like black box algorithms. The black box algorithms are those which, generate results with tremendous amount of accuracy, but their reasoning seems to be very mysterious. So one is also basically thinking of a world where human rights are going to be significantly compromised on. And as China basically shares its own tech equipments and prowesses with many other countries, we will see that there is a threat to the liberal values, many experts say, whereby it is teaching the public security agencies, wherever it is selling its equipments, how to, snoop on its citizens. So people come up with examples of Venezuela and many other and some other countries who buy this kind of equipment from China. So, so basically, the next point is, we are talking about, how we are in a world of where China has suddenly emerged as a very, very significant player. And earlier, where does this kind of an emergence of China as a tech power has proved to be a significant threat to the Americans? So Farrell and Newman in 2019, two American political scientists came up with this concept of weaponized interdependence, whereby, China, US, being a country where it has been able to be very powerful and control the most significant nodes of an interdependent world. So then they come up with this example of how, Americans have used, the global commerce dependence on dollar as a major weapon to see to it that not only their foes, don't do business with them, but their friends also are checked from doing business with their foes. So therefore, in the name of terrorism, organized crime, nuclear proliferation, the Americans have used their position very, very, very effectively. So that with emergence of China as a tech power, it is felt that the Americans are seeing a rival in China, which is competing with them to get a stake in some of the most important nodes in this globalized world. So therefore, the US basically retaliated, after the corona outbreak and by penalizing many of the Chinese tech firms. So they have adopted the Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act, expanded the review of Chinese investment in US tech sector, ban on Huawei US to export technology developed in the US to China, delisting of Chinese firms, new measures to threaten trade partners if they trade with China. For example, how the Americans arm twisted the British basically to see to it that they don't even buy peripheral equipment being sold from Huawei. The Boris Johnson government was earlier facing strong opposition from his own party members, but Boris Johnson insisted on doing that. But once the Americans came to the stage, the Americans successfully arm twisted Boris Johnson to change his position. So this is how one can look at how a complex interdependent world, China is increasingly becoming a competitor to US. Now, what is the when it comes to challenging the US military primacy? I'm not a military strategy person, but I think we need to take note of some of the things here. It has been felt that the late Senator John McCain, he's spoken about what is known as a military-industrial organizational complex. He says that for a very long period of time, the Americans have been very, very conservative, and they have been spending less than what is required when it comes to military budgets. And post-corona, given the fight that many countries in the world have, including the US, what is going to be compromised is smart investment on American defense. And it is being said that by many people, by skeptics within American strategic think tanks, that the US military spends have started declining even in the pre-COVID era. But post-COVID also, this trend is likely going to continue because of the stimulus and all that has been initiated there. So if you look at another piece of data, 17,000 companies have left defense business between 2011 and 2015 alone. Of 100 US startups that have grown into billion-dollar unicorns in recent years, barely there are any single one in the defense sector. So, and if you look at the way China is going, it has an electromagnetic railgun mounted on a ship and fire projectiles 7 times the speed of sound. High-tech warships, upgraded submarines with artificial intelligence. So, Chinese today are not aiming to confront, but rather to undermine the way US operates. So Chinese call this, quote unquote, system destruction warfare. So it is just like, the philosophy that is derived from, their ancient game. This is called Kuo, where the strategy, the game is not like a chess game, whereby the idea is to, defeat the enemy. But in the game of Kuo, the idea is to encircle the enemy and wear out the enemy so that, finally the enemy gives way. The adversary gives way. So perhaps, that kind of a thinking also is there. We also need to understand that as I'm speaking this doesn't mean that suddenly, Americans are no match for China, but that is where, we are being led to. That is for sure. The Chinese know that, in terms of balance of power, they are lagging behind. But when it comes to they, as someone has said, it is not balance of power that matters to Chinese. It is quote unquote balance of resolve that matters to Chinese. And they are, a race which are highly resolved and resolute in terms of where are they going. So, all this made in China 2025 and 2035 has to be seen in that perspective. Now, a quick thought on China's plans to launch, the digital currency. The Chinese government has decided to use central bank digital currency in the form of digital currency and electronic payments. So, advantage China, 86% of Chinese are familiar with mobile payments. It's going to boost the internationalization of RMB. It's going to enhance government's monitoring of economic activity, allow policymakers to be more nimble. Now, the other aspect of this, as we are going to see this digital currency, China is also planning to launch something called a digital wallet, whereby the People's Bank of China is going to enable people to download a digital wallet. And this digital wallet, with this, the central bank is able to supervise and monitor who is spending, how much is spending, and on what they are spending. So So these are some of the things that are going to have major ramifications in the days ahead. So which comes, this takes us to finally to conclude, I just have 2 slides. So China is cyber superpower. How do we see? What are the disadvantages and advantages? And the threats basically. So if you look at the disadvantages, one can see that there is the top-down state-led efforts at innovation in AI, quantum, computing, robotics, and this state-led innovation beyond a certain point where innovation is not bottom up might get stifled. The Chinese tech companies will face economic and political pressures as they globalize. The US may re-energize its own digital diplomacy. And innovation impact, the more red tape one can expect, from profit-driven to goal-driven. So if you look at the threats, China's emergence will lead to digital divide in the cyber world. Beijing may reap diplomatic, national security, and intellectual benefits that once flowed to Washington. Cost and complexity of doing business in China for foreign tech companies is going to become tremendous. It's going to escalate. We are also going to perhaps look at IPR violations. So there are no conclusions in such a difficult topic. But my concluding thoughts are, despite, this is something which we need to understand, despite whatever has happened, post Corona and China's alleged role, one can see that China is still going strong when it comes to its emergence as a hub of high finance. Wall Street's taste for China reflects the changing center of gravity in the world of finance. The world is, when it comes to impact on business and global commerce, the world is going to be divided into 2 rival spheres of influence. China is poised to export its bullet train and nuclear plant prowess in a brief period, exhibiting virtues of state-led development. It has a tremendous, what one calls, geo-epistemological advantage of tech companies, whereby the various chip making and other firms in the Pearl Delta are going to basically reap the advantage of scale. And last but not the least, China's unique ecosystem has inspired innovation and machine learning technologies. And definitely, people will take a leaf out of this, the book of China, and what model they are going to follow, to what extent, the liberal values are going, the post-Second World, liberal values are going to be contended with. That is something which, we need to look forward to. And China's emergence as a tech power is something which has further, added fuel to fire, if one can say, to this whole debate. With this, I stop here.
Thank you so much, sir. Very interesting lecture, and definitely it must have given rise to several discussion points. So quickly, I will invite Mr. Kazim Rizvi to share his points, because I know you're short of time, sir. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Raman. That was very detailed and exhaustive. I think it's great to hear from you on all these aspects, looking at China and its rise as a tech power. Thank you to Dr. Kumar and fellow panelists for being here and listening to such important points. So I have 5 minutes. So I won't really take much time because I have to be in another meeting. So apologies for that. But what we've been seeing, and for somebody who's been working in the tech space, we've been seeing over the last 5 to 10 years that China has been building a very strong firewall of data ecosystem in their country. And we know that the next revolution, the digital revolution, will happen on the amount of data a country has and how well it can develop insights from data. So data is going to be very powerful. Knowledge is going to be very powerful, and the insights which you can generate as a nation will really dictate how the next 100 years of the new global order will emerge. And to lead that global order, China is very focused on making sure that it has all the right amount of data and it has a very strong cybersecurity ecosystem. Now, for India, I think we are seeing that China has emerged as a real threat, not just at the border, but also in the cyber world. And India itself also is now working towards, and we are seeing with the policies of the government also, to be able to take on China when it comes to data and cybersecurity. We are seeing India the US and EU on one hand, countries that are driven by constitutional freedom, which are governed by rule of law and democratic nations, versus China on the other hand, country which is opaque in its functioning and but it's very powerful when it comes to the way it processes and collects data. Now, China has done a lot in the last 10, 15 years to be able to build a strong ecosystem with all their tech companies coming up, investing in various jurisdictions of the world, selling hardware in 5G. So the world is realizing that both hardware and software technology, we have to compete with China. And it's not just enough to compete, but we have to beat China in these technologies. And which is why we are seeing that UK, EU, India, all the countries, all the democratic countries are prohibiting and preventing the use of the 5G hardware of China, because I think when it comes to national security, hardware will play a very key role, and the development of domestic 5G hardware is critical for India to prevent any challenges and threats which can emerge from China. We have seen the ban of Chinese apps also in that direction to prevent the possible cyber hacks and the possible mining of Indian data to Chinese companies, which another is a big challenge. And I think government has rightly done so from strategic point of view. So this battle is being played out in the cyber world. Going forward, I think what's important for India is to enhance our own security architecture, the cyber security architecture. And Dubeji, Amitji is very well has great expertise on that. So I think he can also allude to it. But just broadly to sort of share some pointers, and I have 2 more minutes to go. I think one, we need a very strong cybersecurity policy which addresses some of the challenges we are seeing from China, and also looks at partnerships with countries like the US, the EU and UK, as well as Australia, to have mechanisms where the intelligence of India and US and UK work together to be able to sort of counter the Chinese threat. So that's one. Second is we need robust infrastructure of cybersecurity. So we need cutting edge encryption. We need the best firewall mechanisms. India is the most attacked country by Chinese cyber hackers. So what are we doing to prevent those hacks? What are we doing to make sure that we minimize the hacks and minimize the impact on our economy going forward? So it's going to be a very important strategic game which is being played out in the cyber world, and India is taking all the right steps, has taken all the right steps, but it is imperative for the country to keep working on its policy mechanisms to safeguard user privacy, safeguard user security, to make sure that Chinese infiltrators on cyber world cannot enter our systems, have strong agreements with like-minded nations, work with the Quad to make sure that you have all the best cutting-edge technology, and prevent and prohibit as much technological push from China as possible within the larger trade interest and also the larger commercial and economic interests of the country. So that's pretty much from me. And thank you, Dr. Kumar, for having me here. Would have loved to stay for longer, but I unfortunately have to go for another meeting, but would love to come back in future discussions. And thank you, Dr. Raman, for those really great insights.
Oh, thank you, Kazim. Thank you. So nice meeting all of you here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kazim. So now I'll invite Shri Amit Dubey ji to share his comments. Amit, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir.
And am I visible?
Yes.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you, Dr. Arjun, and it was nice hearing Dr. Venkat Raman and followed by like Kazim. So Kazim is a dear friend, and we discuss a lot on these topics. Now, just to start with, I would love to share with you a few data points, something like what Dr. Raman has just shared. In last 10 years, if you notice, China was not known for biotech companies. And in last 4 years, they have invested heavily. And now they are actually not only researching drugs, they are producing heavily drugs, life-saving drugs. And they have also found this, like one of the cure of cancer, and they are supplying that drug. Now that shows their vision, like where they want to go. The domains that they were nowhere in 10 years back, now they are actually leading those domains. if you today, if we count the even COVID vaccine, their vaccine is also counted in those options, and that is something which is, I think, a great success for China. Similarly, if I can give you some other example, they are not good in semiconductors precisely. They were mostly relying on European innovators. They had some fab companies and all deployed over there, but they were not actually having that confidence to create chip and semiconductors on their own. Now they realize that, and they are now investing heavily in that sector as well. Similarly, if I can give you another example, 10 years back, we were not preferring China for software development. And mostly they were known for manufacturing and assembling or creating products like low-cost products or something. But software development was considered highly intelligent job, and Indians were preferred there. But China has actually surpassed that also very easily. So these are the things which is showing us a very clear picture that what are they intended to. Now, with a vision to double their economy in next 10 years, which is already second largest economy in the world, or surpass US economy in next 5 years, I think that is something which shows their aggression. Recently, when their last legislative meeting was held, they created a 5 years plan. And in that 5 years plan, I think they are predicting like they'll be, they have identified 30 top sectors where they are actually not leading right now. And they'll be investing and trying to like create lots of innovations there. In last, I think 5 years or like 6 years, they already fetched almost $1 trillion investment from various VCs in these sectors. Those are like top 30 sector, which includes 5G, which includes AI, which includes machine learning, which includes cybersecurity as well. Now that is something which is actually scaring US. And with I think there was a comment from John Withen, like, if we will not move now, we will lose our lunch. John Withen made a statement on it. So he is now identifying those sectors, or especially the logistics of those critical components, whether it is rare metal or whether it is semiconductors or whether it is some technology or any such component which is required to even create any such technology or development of products. They are trying to put regulations on it. And so that they can actually curb some growth of China, because China is growing very fast, and they know it like they can actually achieve what they are imagining. That is something which is actually scaring not only US but other competitive countries as well. India is one of them, of course, because we may not be competing with them in terms of GDP or economy, but definitely we have our own interest, especially the technical domains where we have our own strength. And I think that is something where India may lose some market business if China is coming up with some low-cost solutions in future. So that is something I think which I foresee in near future. Now, a few of these other data points that I found, and I would love to share this with you. 8.3% GDP is predicted this year of China, and as compared to US, which is 4%. So they are already actually growing with double of these numbers. Now, $2 trillion they have planned in this 5 years roadmap. Next 5 years, they'll be investing $2 trillion in rare these technologies and pharmaceuticals, and biotech is their one of the favorite area, and lots of new drugs they'll be developing in near future. So these are a few things I think which is of our interest to understand, and in fact we can also learn from China, because our some of our weaknesses are quite similar to China's weaknesses, but because we don't focus on our right strength, we are always lagging behind. And that is something which right now is the right time, because if we don't move, just like US, if we don't move right now, we may lose lots of such opportunities for sure. When we have banned even these Chinese companies, China was not bothered much on it, but we could not exploit that opportunity in India, because there are still not many companies those have started giving those sort of options today for Indian consumers. And that is something I think is a missing opportunity. And there might be other players from other countries, they'll fill in that gap and they may use that opportunity. But why not India? There might be some issues, there might be some challenges. We may say like there is a startup policy, we may say that there are some really good Niti Aayog policies coming up, but then why there are not so many startup or companies those are coming up with these innovations, even not with the simple mobile applications, those are Those are feature-wise, if I say those all applications are already there, you just need to replicate that application with new coding. But that itself is not happening. Even if we compete with, we'll take an example of Coup with Twitter. Coup is nowhere close to Twitter. If you see the feature-wise and functionality-wise and performance-wise, it's slow, it's not looking good, it's not professional. So there are many issues. We need to understand our weakness, otherwise we'll not be able to compete, because these companies are really giving you cutthroat competition in the future. And if we really want to go beyond our boundaries, because software is something which is not limited to Indian geopolitical area, because we may like it, we may give some emotional advantage to that manufacturer. Okay, we may follow Coup, but then once it goes beyond that, it will be compared with all other players, and there we need to show something beyond that, something which is not there already. I think that's something that spark is missing right now. India is considered just like a laborer country right now. We have to show like we can come up with something which is really innovative, which is something which has not happened before. I think that is something which is still lagging behind. I really appreciate this biotech effort of developing Covaxin and coming up with the similar time duration. I think that is amazing. That has created really good impression in the world of Indian researchers. But then the similar kind of things are missing in other areas. AI, we are not nowhere in AI, machine learning, nowhere. And so with other such technologies, robotics, we have already missed the train. And cybersecurity is also, I won't say like we are leading somewhere, because every day we are facing challenges, and we might not be actually losing lots of money because we are not digitized that much even today in government sector. But in future, the way we are actually pushing digitization, these threats will grow. These threats will be #1 threats in future for us. So I think with this, I will stop, and I would love to discuss these points with you guys, because China has already thought of creating a cyber team, and in an offensive way long back. I think in 2013, when I was then I started exploring dark web. There I started meeting with these kind of people. Those are actually part of Chinese offensive team. So they have actually thought of these things long back, and that's why they are leading today. They are not scared with our moves, and they are already in that bandwagon. So I think with these learnings, we need to strategize our policies, our roadmap, so that we can be somewhere, if not competing with China. Thank you.
Just before we go ahead, just to summarize what Amit ji has just now said, and I'm quoting a senior American official, influential voice, who's talking about the American response to China. Forget about response, and I quote him. So he said that the forest is on fire, and we are spraying a garden hose on a bush.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
This is what is American response to China. So forget about the rest of the world.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for this interruption. Yeah. Let's continue.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you.
No problem, sir. Thank you so much. Very interesting intervention. Thank you, Amit, sir. Now I would invite Professor Ritu Agarwal to share her comments. Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yes. Yeah. See, I mean, it was really fascinating, and I'm, so much, in fact, listening to all the important comments given by, great panelists here. And I, I want to begin with the question with Venkat began with, is China really a tech superpower? And, something which was really striking me, that if you look at the most of the technical companies, which he also mentioned in his talk, but I just want to reiterate that fact again, that if one look at the important technical companies in China, even from the earlier time till now, looks like most of them are still state-owned companies, and they have entered into a kind of a different forms of ownership patterns, which of course he talked about, multinational, joint stock, big conglomerations, small, medium enterprises, but the state control is still there. So that's something very unique about China's technological development, where the state is actually investing a lot of resources and financial capital, and also creating a kind of a block for the foreign companies to enter into some kind of a market. So this is it something very important point for China to become a kind of a so-called technological superpower in that case. So if for example, if some of the foreign companies want to relocate or want to locate some of these important technological development corporations in China, so in that case they have to go through the state directed or state control panels, and then even in terms of R&D investment they have to share with China. So in that case a lot of restrictions are there, and that's where the state somehow is able to gain advantage of the technological expertise of the foreign companies which have invested in money, or maybe you can say which have invested a lot of technological kind of a growth in China. So that maybe in a way has created a niche area for China to become a technological superpower. So I want Venkat to elaborate that aspect, which he has been talking about it, but something which is very important and unique feature of Chinese technological development. And that gives me another point to that we have been talking about China as a kind of a innovative power, or China has created a innovation led driven strategy. So in that case, what is innovation? Is it something which has been invented by China? What are the invention, in a way uniqueness, or what are the new inventions that China has come forward to? So the idea is that most of the innovations or the inventions which China has developed over the years is basically through this, the kind of technologies they have appropriated from the other countries, or maybe, the kind of student exchange program, for example, they have, as Venkat was mentioning in his talk, a lot of financial support, state, fellowship program, which they have given to their students, scholars to go to US and other countries to learn all this technological expertise, and then, come and implement in case of China. So the what I'm trying to say is that, if you look at, for example, this great this thing for this telecommunications companies, and if you look at it, most of the mobile of China made and other Samsung made look same. So it's not that China has made any kind of a great innovation in this, even this telecommunication, but the whole thing is that the way they have upscaled the entire innovation market in China. Of course, for that, they have given a lot of investment, a lot of finances, R&D development, research and development investment in a big way. So that in a way has helped China to come up. But still, I would say, if you look at the innovation kind of a strategy, we still look towards US and Europe and towards the West, because that's where they are in a way trailing, all these countries to gain an access to this technological development, rather than coming with something new on their own. I mean, you may react to it, but that's something which is a kind of reflections that is it China really innovating, though they have been focusing on innovation led development growth from the, especially from the Xi Jinping time, but is it something that they are appropriating? And thing is that they're appropriating and they are using it very fast, and they are upscaling it in their country. And the reason which many of you have mentioned, the domestic market is so important for China's technological development. Most of the Chinese people are, very much willing to use new technologies, whether it's a app, whether it's phone or computer programs or anything. So software technological domestic market itself is so huge. So even if China is not able to innovate something new, so whatever they are upscaling, the innovation kind of a models, they are able to sell it in their domestic market, which is actually giving them a kind of a much more superior kind of a advantage in the international market, so to say. And if you look at, for example, this artificial intelligence, they of course have made a lot of improvement because of generated data, as well as in terms of facial recognition techniques and other things. But then it it limits here. So how far they are able to compete with the international companies, whether you talk about Huawei, whether you talk about 5G technologies, there I would say still we should take it as a pinch of salt, that how much China's technological superpower is actually going to compete with the Western world from where it has originated, A, and B, because they have a certain kind of a more technological and innovation led kind of a model. And China is trying to, in a way, upscaling by taking it as a kind of appropriating them in their own country. So that is something which I want to, really open it for discussion. And third, or whatever the last point which I wanted to focus on is that though China has been trying to go ahead in terms of becoming a global player, whether talk about technology or telecommunication or the semiconductors or the nuclear technology, but China is the one which is even not binding by the international regime, laws, and norms. So on the one hand, you're trying to become a kind of important players globally, but on the other hand, you're also not following the international legal regime in many of the important areas. So in that case, whether China, the whole issue which we talk about international politics, whether China will be a kind of a responsible stakeholder, or whether it will be becoming kind of a status quo power, or whether it's only going to become a just a kind of a country for working for its own national interest. So the whole issue is that how much China, a responsible actor, can play an important role in, especially in these technological areas, given the limitations it has vis-a-vis the kind of rules and norms it is not following, especially in the international area. And fourth, if you look at it, last point. The fourth, if you look at it, the Chinese party's interest, especially in the last 19th Party Congress, you have a very important technological, players or politicians, in the CPC main Politburo Standing Committee members. So which means that they are very clear about it, that they have to take China to a new high-tech power position. But thing is that there are still challenges and limitations which they have to overcome if they want to see themselves as a global player. So I stop here.
Thank you, ma'am, for your remarks. I would now quickly go to Dr. Ambika Viswanath. Ma'am, I hope you are well, and please, over to you.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks. Thanks, Simi. Actually, Venkat, firstly, hi, nice to see you again. It's been a while, I think, since we last met. I wasn't going to speak today because, as Simi and Arjun know, I am still on my COVID recovery period. So it's taking time, but your talk has been extremely fascinating, which I knew it was going to be, which is why I thought I'll just pop in for 1 minute to say that to you, because I mean, while we all work on various aspects of China, I think it's important that we learn, no matter what area of China that we work in, whether it's China itself or China and its relationships with South Asia, which is what I work on a lot, as you know, especially on resources. The tech factor is something that we should all be very aware of, because it plays a very big role in many of the spaces that we work in. So in that sense, thank you very much for your most excellent discussion. I have many questions, but I'm going to email many of them to you because they are a little bit different from what you've discussed here. But I did have one question to you, and if you maybe want to think about it for your next discussion, or say something here, but looking at it from the larger geopolitical perspective, where do you place the future of countries like Japan and South Korea in this future battle that you've been talking about between China and the US? And there's been some talk, of course, of India and Australia and cybersecurity norms, what the international community should do. But I want to just bring this Japan and South Korea into that discussion as well. And I'm gonna now shut my camera again because COVID recovery doesn't make for good pictures. But thank you so much again, Venkat, and thanks Arjun and Simi for putting this together.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Thank you so much for your kind words.
Yes, yes. Dr. Venkat, if you could briefly respond to the remarks made. And also there is a small question by Ela. Can international arbitration laws and proactive international community together deal with the invasion, quote unquote, by Chinese tech companies?
The very small, brief response to Ela's question is this, that, how can you talk of international arbitration laws which are yet being formulated. And, here the alleged conspirator itself is the one who is framing the rules of the game and sitting in positions of rule making. So therefore, who is going to, what laws we are talking about? They are very much in a fledgling state. That's why I said that emergence of tech power, the impact on international tech regime and China's influence is going to be tremendously significant, and how ably the rest of the world is going to contend with that, and jostle for, the democratic, transparent regime. Let us be, many people in India, we know that, China is our neighbor, it is a communist system, it is an authoritarian system, etc., etc. But sometimes I feel that, we tend to look at China from a different lens than what we do with the US. US is not a holy cow either. It always plays rules. So if we go back to classical realism of Morgenthau, everyone is playing their own game. Ultimate objective is to boost national power and national interest, and that's what everyone is doing here. Who is talking of ethics? If you look at one of the 6 premises of Morgenthau, he says that it is unethical to be ethical in the international system. So so that's a very, so that we always say that, China has done this. We very rarely say, we very easily forget what Americans do to the whole world. They, with all the talk of democracy, they plant Augusto Pinochet there in Chile. They have overthrown so many, democratically elected leaders and replaced them with military regimes. So the only problem with, problem with China is that what happens in, in Chungnanhai basically stays there. And, beyond that, no one knows. So the very opaqueness of the system is the biggest threat there. And so that is what the world has to deal with. So you never know what is coming. In the case of Trump, New York Times and Wall Street Journal, they say, and we know what is happening. And there is a Joe Biden coming. We don't know when she is going and for how many years he will be there. So that is the crux of the problem. But they are entitled to further their own national objectives. And how do you deal with them is not their problem. It is your problem. So you have to deal with the world as given to you. Ritu has actually raised a Pandora's box. Actually, so many questions. Frankly speaking, I forgot actually the questions that she has asked. I think I'll take one to one. But many of the questions which she has posed are, the CC basically has brought in very pertinent questions as to the pros and cons of state-led top-bottom, development and tech modernization and tech progress. And to what extent, it is replicable, and is it even worth being pursued in the long run? And ultimately, she says that, I don't know whether I got it right. Ultimately, she has this optimism that, this bottom-up Silicon Valley model is always going to win over the top-bottom model of development. There are many other nuances. I partially agree and I partially disagree with that also. Because I think many a times Ritu is definitely not one of them. She's a very, major China expert. She has been following China for long. But in general, I'm saying that many of the people in our country, basically, when they see China and comment on China, they don't understand China from the perspective of how China looks at the world. In order to understand or to comment on China and its various facets, one has to appreciate, if not accept, how does China look at the world? The moment you are able to understand that, you will be able to make a better sense of, what they are doing. And then accordingly, you take, you respond. So Ritu is a good friend. So I think many of the questions, this debate will go on and on. Maybe we had to have another round of, discussion and roundtable to decipher the relevance of the topics that she has raised. So I'll stop here because, as I said, many of the questions that she has raised are very pertinent, but are very open-ended as well. And there are two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And definitely there are a few questions that are coming up, but we will send them as email to you. And definitely we need to have a second round with you for better clarity. So thank you so much.
I just said that in a lighter way. Please don't take that seriously.
No. It's a very, very serious topic. Yes, Arjun, you were saying something?
Yes, I was saying, learning more on that, we will have Ritu ma'am speaking on China and also invite Venkat sir.
Yes,
Sure, sure.
because the discussion is very important and we need to have.
Right. So, Simi, if you can just quickly propose a vote of thanks.
Yes, I will. So thank you so much on behalf of the Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies at IMPRI Impact and Policy Research Institute. Thank you all for joining us this evening on a very, very important theme on China's emergence as a tech power. My special thanks to the speaker for the day, Dr. G Venkat Raman, and all our discussants, Professor Ritu Agarwal, Ambika ma'am, Kazim sir, and Amit Dubey sir. Thank you for your very enriching points, and I really sincerely hope that we continue this discussion further for greater clarity. And I would also like to thank all the participants here on Zoom and watching us live on Facebook, and who would be watching us later on YouTube. So thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Arjun and Team IMPRI, for your participation and support. Thank you so much. And I wish you all a very good day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you to all of you in IMPRI. Thank you, Simi. Thank you, Arjun.
Bye. Bye, Ritu ma'am.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye. Take care.